New Delhi, the capital of India, is one of the most populated cities in the world. The majority of its inhabitants practice Hinduism. Islam is only the second religion of the country. The Muslim quarter is nestled in the old city of Delhi. It is dominated by the Jama Masjid, the Friday mosque. Indians come from all over the country to pray there or to visit. It is perched on a small hill, and its architecture is distinguished by a huge courtyard. An open-air prayer room in which the faithful meet at dawn. It can accommodate up to 25,000 people. Every morning, the same ritual. The call of the muezzin announces the time of the first prayer and the opening of the doors by the caretaker. The neighborhood is waking up. Summer and winter alike, you always take off your shoes to preserve the purity of the place before doing your ablutions.
He who comes from outside is obliged to do ablutions before prayers. We call it the wuzu. There are several steps. First, wash your hands, then your face. Once he has finished the wuzu, the follower can enter the mosque with the imam and start to pray. There are 5 prayers each day, and every Muslim has to do them, from morning to evening. The last one takes place around 1 a.m. It is the prayer of Isha'ah.
The Jama Masjid is in the middle of bustling Old Delhi, surrounded by the bazaar, the shops, and the incessant horns of the rickshaws. Before sunrise, the Muslim neighborhood is in rhythm with the hour of the first prayer. For the Hindus, it is also time for worship or offerings to the Yamuna, the river that crosses New Delhi. Islam arrived in India with the first Muslim conquests led by the Persians, who settled in the Ganges Valley as early as the 8th century. Persian arts deeply influenced the Indian imagination, but it was the Mughal conquerors, descendants of the Central Asian steppes, who occupied India for nearly 4 centuries. The Jama Masjid is a legacy of the great architectural mastery of the Mughals. Conceived by Emperor Shah Jahan, its construction began in 1644 and lasted 12 years. In the early morning, the mosque is cleaned in a strange way. The dust must be driven away, but also the feathers of the many birds that coexist here with the men. The pigeon was a very popular bird of the Mughal emperors. Today, they reign as masters in the air of Old Delhi and feast on the millet that the faithful offer them every day in the courtyard of the mosque. All around, on the roofs of the old town, the inhabitants commonly install pigeon lofts and spend time with their birds.
There's a lot of food on the ground, a lot of millet, and all that millet is offered by Muslims. Some throw 500 grams, others 1 or 2 kilos, and for those who regularly feed them, it brings them good luck.
The neighborhood's breeders train them daily and compete with each other.
This passion has existed since the time of kings and emperors. Shah Jahan also had this passion for pigeons.
Pigeon breeding was a passion for the Mughals. Akbar the Great, the famous emperor of this dynasty, had more than 20,000. This interest in breeding has passed through time and has become popular, especially in the Old Town. Carrier pigeons, racing pigeons, or fighting pigeons, the bird was an important object of attention at the Mughal court. Today, it is impossible to imagine the Friday mosque without its flocks of birds. In the 17th century, Shah Jahan transformed Delhi into his capital. He wanted to build the largest mosque in India. Under his reign, Mughal architecture began its classical era. The emperor initiated the most ambitious program in the history of Islamic art. Before the construction of the Jama Masjid, he had built a monument that would go down in architectural history. The Taj Mahal, an incredible white marble mausoleum built for his beloved and deceased wife, Mumtaz Mahal. White marble was at the time the most noble, the most precious material. Shah Jahan asked that the Mosque of Delhi also be adorned with it, inlaid in red sandstone.
The Mughal emperor had an ambitious vision, and he implemented this vision in monuments. He competed with other kings like the Ottoman emperor and the Safavid king of Iran. And so one important thing for the Jama Masjid is that it's enormous. Until then, no other mosque had been built on this scale.
The huge Jama Masjid follows the classic pattern of a quadrilateral with 3 large gates to the north, east, and south. The west wall, consisting of the covered prayer hall, faces Mecca. The emperor wanted it elevated, built like a fortress. It thus offered a refuge to Muslims in the event of conflict with the country's other religions. The Mughals from Central Asia were not necessarily welcome on this Hindu land, and there were many battles. However, they arrived in India with a great mastery of the arts of sculpture and stone carving.
The Mughals had come from an area where mosaic I mean, beautiful, intricate design tiles were used in Central Asia. Well, that technique was not known to Indians then, and they had no other alternative than to use colored stone, which was abundantly found all around India. And Shah Jahan exploited that perfectly. And the idea was from Persia, but the artisans were Indians. So there are many features now which we find is neither in purely of, which could be termed purely Persian or purely Indian for that. It's a blend.
This mixture of artistic influences allowed the emergence of a new style unique to Emperor Shah Jahan. The bulbous domes in white marble are characteristic of the sacred monuments built during his reign. They could already be found on the Taj Mahal. Here at the Jama Masjid, their whiteness, symbol of purity, contrasts with the density of red sandstone. Inspired by plant shapes, the sandstone arches are serrated like tree leaves. They can be seen everywhere in the mosque, repeated over and over. The entire architecture of the place is based on this principle of repetition of decorative elements.
Inside, there are prayer mats made of stone, marble, and blackstone. And the inscription behind me, which is a long inscription, is in a beautiful calligraphy. And it is made without using any other material. It is only stone.
These calligraphies tell the story, the anecdotes that punctuated the construction of the mosque. We learn, for example, that it cost 1 million rupees, a considerable sum for the time, knowing that some walls were inlaid with semi-precious stones, now disappeared. A place of worship, Jama Masjid is above all a place of life. This gives it a great originality compared to other mosques. Throughout the day, men, women, and children come and go. They can pray here, of course, but also chat with friends or spend time with family.
People come from all over the country to see the Jama Masjid. And among them, there are people of all religions. There are Hindus, Christians, Sikhs. And then there are also these people who have 2 hours to spend before going to the station. They too come to Jama Masjid and they wait. They spend time here. In the area north of the mosque, 100% of the population is Hindu, while in the south, 100% is Muslim. For 375 years, this mosque has witnessed a spirit of unity.
More than 300 years old, this jewel of Mughal art is put to the test. It suffers attacks from monsoons, pigeons that fly over it constantly, but especially from the heavy pollution of the city.
This monument requires, day-to-day care, because it's an old monument, like an old man who requires, everyday pills. So like that. But conservation or maintenance is a process which has to be attempted regularly. We try to copy or exactly reproduce the methodology which had been used during Shah Jahan's time. You have to train the artisans You have to guide them, teach them, and provide them proper skill training.
About 10 years ago, architect A.K. Sina directed important renovation works of the mosque. In particular, a part of the facades where it was necessary to remake the stuccos. In some discrete parts of the building, stucco replaced marble, a material very appreciated by the emperor, but excessively expensive, even in the 17th century.
They could not, afford putting marble on this side also. So just to match it, just to give, look of marble, they have applied white luster. You can see the difference. This is marble facade, whereas this portion from here, this side, from here to this the other end, you find, it's lime. White lime has been used to give a look of marble.
Lime stucco is a subtle art of mixing. It dates back to antiquity and creates the illusion, almost perfectly, of marble. It is a very resistant coating that is easily dyed and sculpted, hence its presence in many sacred buildings around the world.
When we plaster, we follow the traditional methodology. The composition of the material is also, almost kept as had been prescribed. We use, powdered bricks, burnt bricks, and then we mix it with some ingredients. There is a fruit which has adhesive qualities, that is mixed. And at places we also use some pulses. There is one, pulse now which I can quote, which we use also. That is urad dal. Urad dal, which we eat also in India. We, soak it in water, and then it is grinded and then mixed.
The fabrication of stucco with lime remains very artisanal. These recipes survive thanks only to the experience of a handful of initiated craftsmen and architects. After school, in Delhi's Old Town, children usually climb on rooftops to indulge in their favorite pastime, flying kites. This tradition, inherited from a Hindu festival which celebrates the change of season, is today a popular game without religious connotation. And for the kite, the raised courtyard of the Jama Masjid is an ideal playground. At the corner of the square lies a treasure, of which only Jimmy Bukhari has custody and the key. The reliquary of the Jama Masjid is said to contain personal effects of the Prophet and his relatives. 2 Qurans, which would have been written by the disciples of the Prophet, a sandal of Muhammad, as well as a footprint that the Prophet would have left on earth.
This is one of the mu'jiza of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to step on the stone used to melt down to comfort the feet of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
The faithful who so request can approach the relics and try to obtain the Prophet's blessing. If this devotion is not unanimously accepted among Muslims, it is completely accepted here. It is said that the emperor himself would have wished to make this reliquary available to believers.
These relics have been here for almost around 400 years now, since this mosque was made. When Shah Jahan built this mosque in 1656, he took the relics and kept it here for the public to get the benefits. They handed over the relics and the dargah to my forefathers to take care of it. And since then, from generation to generation, it's been here. And now currently, alhamdulillah, I'm the 15th generation of my family serving this place.
Friday is a day off in the Muslim neighborhood. Without a doubt, the busiest day in the alleys surrounding the mosque. Puri are baked here, fried rolls that Indians enjoy at any time of the day, dipped in spicy sauces. Friday is also the day of the Great Prayer. Before the arrival of the faithful, the courtyard is covered with carpets. They will be much more numerous than the other days of the week. And during Ramadan, Jama Masjid's courtyard is barely big enough to contain everyone. At 80, Fayez Udin never misses this prayer. He lives right in front of the mosque and has lived next to it since he was 5 years old. He's a close friend of the Imam.
At the Jama Masjid, we meet, we talk amongst ourselves, and we take news from the neighborhood. Once a week, on Fridays, we put on new clothes, put on a little perfume, and go to the mosque. People from all over the city meet and talk, and if someone has difficulties, we share their worries and misfortunes.
Sitting among the crowd, Fayez humbly awaits the beginning of the Imam's sermon. Songs call out to the faithful who continue to stream in. For the great prayer at the beginning of the afternoon, there are nearly 8,000 seated side by side on the red courtyard of the Jama Masjid. Prayer begins once everyone is present. The Imam leads the prayer from the covered room of the mosque. He is only visible from the first few rows. So it is therefore necessary that men mounted on promontories reproduce his gestures so that all believers pray at the same rhythm. He can address all sorts of subjects during the Friday sermon. As a spiritual guide, the Imam evokes the texts of the Quran and theology, but he may also address more pragmatic everyday problems.
In all mosques, you need an imam to guide prayers. Whether it's at the Jama Masjid in Delhi or any mosque in the world, you need an imam. And it is the imam's responsibility to convey a message of humanity and to prevent people from doing harm. The imam has many responsibilities. There are wars everywhere in the world, and we must try to stop them. This message is not only for Muslims, but for anyone who is tempted to do harm.
A message of peace that the Imam of New Delhi wants to address to all Indians. Sent from the Jama Masjid, this message has an inestimable symbolic significance in a country with a history punctuated by conflicts between religious communities.